Meteorological Services, Lands and Mineral Resources, the Honourable Jone Usamate, to deliver his statement. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Members of Parliament and people of Fiji. Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for giving me this time, this opportunity to address this House in my capacity as the Minister for Lands and Mineral Resources to deliver my ministerial statement. We're entering a new financial year. I think as we enter this financial year, we take the opportunity to look back at how well we have progressed, and we're happy with what we have been achieved. And we know there's going to be always a lot to be done, especially during the difficult times that the world faces today because of the advent of COVID-19 and the economic calamity that it has brought the world. Mr. Speaker, sir, my statement this morning is on the role, the functions, and the functions of the Land Use Division responsible for the Land Bank, which over the past few years has been the subject of a lot of misconceptions and fake news, if I may use that term. There has been, it seems, at times, a deliberate ploy, a blatant attempt to mislead and to create mistrust about the work of my ministry's Land Use Division and the Land Bank. Such misconceptions are doing a disservice and misleading Fijians on the benefits accruing out of the work of the Land Use Division, and in particular the Land Bank, for both landowners and for the country as a whole. Many Fijians are not fully aware or have been misinformed of the Land Bank investment and what the Land Use Division stands for, and as such, some of them have refrained from depositing their land into the Land Bank. The Land Bank was established under the government's Land Reform Initiative and enacted in 2010. This initiative was implemented in 2011 to make more land available for productive and socio-economic purposes. With government concern also that a lot of Itoke land lay idle and unproductive, the Land Bank program provided an alternative to our Itoke land owning units. It gave them an opportunity to get returns from the assets that they own that they would otherwise have not had. The Land Bank under the Land Use Division provides landowners with another option and complements the work of the Itoke Land Trust Board for leasing of their land. Honourable Speaker, as part of the Land Bank initiative, the development of Itoke land is undertaken to help convert what we have always called asset-rich Itoke landowners to become both asset-rich and to help them become more cash-rich. At the same time, this development releases assets into the economy that can be used to generate growth, to generate jobs and capital that benefits the country as a whole. Through the Land Reform Initiative, idle Itoke land have been utilized, the lands are surveyed and developed, while they are assisted to become more financially literate so that they can use the money that they earn from their investment in the land bank in a sustainable manner that benefits themselves and their families over the long term. Additionally, there's also been a wide misconception of a land grab through the land bank. There is no such thing happening in Fiji. There is no land grab that is taking place by government. Such misinformation, as I said, has at times led to insecurity of investors investing in this land due to false advice by other parties, political opposition, that land sought after through the land bank is a result of a land grab. Let me say it again, assertively, that there is no such program of land grab by government. Mr. Speaker, sir, the protection of ownership and interest to land are secured and enshrined in the 2013 Fijian Constitution, the supreme law of the land that governs every action of this government. This land bank initiative is not something that this government has plucked out of thin air. The establishment of the land bank was born out of government's land reform initiative and is now a critical output of my ministry. It works to ensure a balance between land availability, security, and land resources development for economic development. This is what it does. It grows our country. It provides benefits to landowners whilst protecting their rights. This was outlined in Pillar 6 of the People's Charter for Change, Peace and Progress of 2008 and the Roadmap for Democracy and Sustainable Socio-Economic Development for the year 2010 to 2014. The Land Use Act of 2010 established the Land Use Division, and they in turn are required to act in the best interest of landowners. This unit is also required to promote transparency, to promote dialogue between landowners, lessees, and the state. The primary role is the development of the land bank to facilitate the efficient leasing of lands which are currently idle and unutilized under terms and conditions which are attractive to both the landowners and the tenants. That is the key. It must be attractive to both the landowners and the tenants. With the new developments and government plans to strategically craft our journey, reforms to improve access to land through the land bank is once again reflected in our 5-year and 20-year National Development Plan. Over these past 10 years, this government still sees the importance of enhancing land reform initiatives with the intention to protect land ownership and those that may have or have interest in each parcel of land. Mr. Speaker, since the inception of the Land Use Division, there has been a number of developments, a number of achievements. First is that as a result of this, there has been a total of 119 land parcels, which a total area of more than 10,500 hectares or 26,144 acres that have been put into the land bank, 119 parcels altogether. Of these 119 designated land parcels, 100 of them were Itoke land. 100 was Itoke land. There are a few others, I think there are 13 were freehold buyback land and 6 was state land. Of the 100 that came from Itoke land, 89 of these parcels of land have already been surveyed and 71 have been leased out. And out of that 100, 2 have been reverted back as per the request of the landowners, of the original Itoke landowners. So that's a summary of this land bank. 119 parcels, 100 Itoke. Of that 100 Itoke, 89 have been surveyed, 2 have been reverted back, and 71 have been leased out. Out of the Itoke land that has been surveyed, it comprises almost 9,000 hectares of land that has already been surveyed. So the landowners, when they put their land into the land bank, they get the surveying done from them. They do not have to pay for the surveying costs. Out of the money that is the land that has been put into the land bank, aligned to the objective of this, the total amount of lease proceeds has amounted to more than $11 million. This is money that would not have circulated in the economy if we did not have the land bank. $11.2 million is circulating, and all of that money, there's been no administrative cost that is cut by the Ministry of Lands. All the lease money goes back directly to the landowners. They get the total value of the land that they're giving to the land bank. And the fourth point to make, Mr. Speaker, sir, that when this land comes into the land bank, it undertakes a market valuation of our designated customary land with ongoing assessment at prevailing market rates. At prevailing market rates. This is a proactive measure adopted to ensure predetermined market rates for designated properties are made available to both the landowners and also the potential investors as and when it is required. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I had mentioned, and may I reiterate, there's always been a controversy and misconception about the land bank since it was introduced. There's been always rumors that once land is deposited into the land bank, land owning units will lose out on their land. That is not true. Control is always in the hands of the landowners. I've just mentioned that out of the 100 lots that Itoke land that was put into the land bank, 2 of them, of those land parcels, have been reverted back to the landowners at their request after a period of 5 years when it was not leased out. That shows that they still have access to their land. They have control over it. As I mentioned here, the 2 Itoke land parcels reverted to the landowners due to their wish to cease designation. This is an option available to the landowners if they wish to withdraw their land from designation after 5 years if the land is not leased. This is covered under the Land Use Regulation 2011, Section 6, Subsection 2. And it needs to be highlighted here in this House to set the record straight over the numerous misconceptions often preached by members of the other side of the House that government will rob land ownership rights once land is deposited into the land bank. Additionally, there has been claims that the land bank is a breach of indigenous rights and land grab with no proper consultation and consent. The designation of any Itoke, let me say this very slowly, the designation of any Itoke land into the land bank can only happen if 60% of the qualifying members of the relevant land owning unit agree. That can only happen if that happens. If the 60% threshold is not met, the process stops. The process stops. So the control is with the landowners. The process stops if the consent is not given. Control, therefore, is securely in the hands of the landowners. In addition, once the consent has been given, the Prime Minister has the power to then designate the land. He has the opportunity to review the whole process, to make sure that the rights of landowners are maintained and they're kept safe. It goes to the Prime Minister who makes that final ruling. Prime Minister then designates the land before it finally goes into the land bank. Additionally, Section 10 of the Land Use Act states, all leases issued under this Act shall be for a period of not more than 99 years. Therefore, land can be leased for 50 years, 30 years, or even 5 years. However, this does not undermine the fact that a 99-year lease will also attract investors, because when they have a long lease term, they know I can take $1 million, $2 million, and pour it into that piece of land, make it as productive as possible, and they have the time span in which to recover the investment that they've made into that land. That's what we need. We need people to invest into this land. Landowners get their due returns, they get employment, and the investor gets what he invested in the land for initially. Yes, and banks, so when you have these long terms, the banks also use this as collateral so they can raise capital to invest it into that piece of land. Landowners of Fiji need to know that the government is not taking away or stealing anybody's land. We will always respect their decisions and the decisions made by the land owning units. Mr. Speaker, sir, the land use division also includes a public relations team whose primary role is to conduct landowners consultation and awareness throughout the duration of any financial year. The main objective is to correct misconceptions that have spread throughout this country on the land bank. In the last financial year, the unit conducted 57 landowners awareness and consultation. They also conducted 30 landowners revisitations where they went back to meet the landowners. Landowners consultation is an internal part of the work of my land use division. And the welfare of the resource owners is and always be a priority. Furthermore, there have been annual landowners consultation workshops coupled with financial literacy training by financial institutions over the years. The success of this consultation workshop has helped bring forward proposals and views that reflect the wishes and aspirations of resource owners. Mr. Speaker, sir, there's also been misleading information that once land-owning units deposit land to the land bank, they will receive less benefits. I reiterate the fact that I said before. When you put your land into the land bank, you do not incur any administrative charges. There's no administrative fees. The money that's collected goes straight to the landowners. They enjoy the full benefit of receiving 100% of proceeds derived from the lease money received, which is paid back to them through their trust bank accounts. Government's quest is to improve access to land through the Land Bank Initiative and the fulfillment of deriving optimal and equitable return to be utilized by the landowners. I've been around the country a few times looking at some of these plots of land. I visited the land of the Tokotoka Usamate of Sonaka village in Nandi. The government has developed and constructed a 17-acre Itoke land for 77 residential subsistence subdivision in Langalanga, Nandi. This development is now nearing completion and ready for pre-sale. Government has already spent around 2.2 million for this construction development loan. Government has put that money into that particular land. The landowners of Tokotoka Usamate will benefit through optimal return generated from the sale of those lots. when the lots are sold, they will get that money. And over and above that, apart from the profits payable, the landowners will also be receiving annual projected ground rentals approximating 50,000 per annum, with 5 yearly rent reviews to last the full duration of the lease term of 99 years. That's one example of people that have put their land into the land bank. I had the opportunity of visiting the land that has been prepared by the Matangali Raralevo of Serua. They put around 116 hectares of their land into the land bank. Land use surveyed that. Then the Matangali created their own commercial company for the Matangali, and then they leased the land bank. So they gave the land in, they got the survey done, paid by government, paid by the land use. Once that is in place, they set up their own company to manage that land again. So they've got 2 bites of the cherry. That is what government is doing to help these landowners. There have been other developments at Lubutop, where there is a comprehensive development scheme to suit the needs of the landowners, whilst investors' interests and additional expressions of interest are also accommodated. This is around 71 hectares. The land has already been surveyed. The scheme plan has been done. Not paid by the landowners, but paid by the land use division. So they get the benefits, the full benefits of what they need out of this land. Even for some, there are some who put their land into the land bank. After a while, after 5 years, they want their land bank because it has not been leased out. Even if it reverts, when they get the land bank, the land has already been surveyed. And in some place, the scheme plan has already been done. In some cases, it may cost 15,000, 20,000, some money that they did not have to spend to get the survey done. So there's a whole host of benefits that landowners get out of putting their money, putting their land, into the land bank. Government puts the best interests of its people above all else. Government has also ensures that it protects the interests of Itoke landowners, and it will never, ever compromise on this. It will never do that. And that is a constitutional provision that we will uphold in this government. Itoke landowners have land that they are not using, which can be put to productive use, and at the same time earn income for this. This system delivers on that. So to all Itoke landowners, this is my message to you. Rest assured, this government puts people first, puts you first. My ministry will always opt for the highest and best approach with the maximum returns on Itoke land or any other land. Most importantly, we want you to become both asset rich and help you to become as catch rich as possible. And we will do our utmost to see that happens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
I thank the Honourable Minister for the ministerial statement, and for the opposition, I now give the floor to the Honourable Mitieli Bulanoza. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, sir. I thank the Minister for updating us on the land bank under the land use policy that they have they're working on. But I wish to comment on the misconceptions that he has mentioned, particularly say misleading and misinformed and misconception to the landowners. I must let the Honourable House, there is no misconception at all. There is no differentiation of the interpretation of the Act itself. The fact is that there is a role already played by native land transport which can cater for it. Why transfer that role to the government? Because it is important that the native land transport itself, who is the owner of the land, to be in control and develop and manage their own resources for them. The government has to help in whatever way that they can help you. So it is important that the assets of the landowners are managed by the native land transport itself, rather than the government. That is a very important issue about this area. So it is important that, because this policy, Honourable Speaker, is very important that we need to recognize the ownership of the land here in Fiji. It is by the chief and the Matangali landowners themselves, and they need to be consulted in the way the land needs to be controlled, developed, and managed. In this particular land use policy, they were never consulted. They were never consulted at all. started in 2000, when Honorable former Prime Minister mentioned about land use. He never consulted the Muslim Buktura. Also, the Prime Minister and the Minister for everything, or Minister of Economy, tries to do at the moment is to bypass the consultation process with the Muslim Buktura for the Great Council of Chiefs in relation to the development, control development of the native land here in Fiji. Nobody is grappling about the benefits that the landowners will get by developing their own land. But the main principal issue here is that there is already a mechanism, and the board is already there with the Native Land Trust Board to deal with the development of native land here in Fiji. So it is important that the right consultation and the right process is made before an act, or particularly the Land Decree Act 2010, was formulated. So may I also mention, the Minister also mentioned that that their interests are well protected under the decree or the act, the Land Use Decree, Land Use Act of 2010. So I must say here, and let me quote, Honorable Speaker, sir, from Section 15(1), certain decisions not to be challenged. Here it affects the interest. It affects the interest or the interest of the landowners is concerned. No court, tribunal, commission, or any other adjudicating body shall have the jurisdiction to accept, hear, determine, or in any way entertain any proceeding, claim, challenge, or dispute by any person or body which seeks or purports of challenge or question A, the validity, legality, propriety of this decree, B, any decision of any minister or any state official or body made under this decree, C, the terms and conditions of lease issued by Director of Lands under this decree, or D, the validity of the cancellation of any leases, licenses of other instruments. So it is important that they have the right to take anything up to any courts or any tribunal for their interests. So it is important that their interests have been taken away, their rights have been taken away under the Constitution. So in other words, let me expand further. The presiding judicial officer on B, Section 15(3) says the presiding officer, without hearing or in any way determining the proceedings or the application, shall immediately transfer the proceeding or the application to the chief registrar for termination of the proceeding. So immediately terminated that. So they throw it to the rubbish bin straight away. So there is no right for the landowners to challenge in court or any tribunal for any legal issues that have been raised for the leases themselves. We understand before a lease is issued, if there is no development, they can withdraw within 5 years. We understand that. But the legal issues here, their rights have been taken away. Rights under the Constitution have been taken away by this decree here, the Land Use Decree or Act 2010. Thank you, sir. Honorable Speaker.
Honourable members, I thank the Honourable Itieli Mulinoda for his contribution, and I now give the floor to the Honourable Pio Tikandondua. You have the floor.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I thank the Honourable Minister for his statement. Although I'm not surprised that he is taking a major good step to talk about the land bank when the nation most likely wants to hear from him in his capacity as Minister for Infrastructure about the appalling situation on water and empty taps on the past couple of days. Mr. Speaker, may I add that access to clean drinking water is a constitutional right, like any other right. It makes a mockery of the Constitution Day, which we are to celebrate next week, Monday, if the Minister and his Ministry and the Water Authority cannot make accessible clean drinking water to parts of the Suvarnasuri corridor from last Thursday until today, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, since everyone is talking about land bank, let me talk about land bank. Oh, you didn't. Mr. Speaker, the last time the government side spoke on the land bank was when Mr. Ashnil Sudhakar was the Minister of Lands. Mr. Sudhakar took the opportunity to laud the land bank successes just in March of this year. Stop beeping, Honourable Minister. Stop beeping, I'll continue. As you recall from Hansard, Mr. Sudhakar could only speak of these successes in single digits. That is only a handful of success stories. Since then, as we all know, Mr. Sudhakar has made many revealing updates outside of Parliament, including how the proxy Deputy Prime Minister directs how interjections from the government should be made to the opposition side.
Order.
Mr. Speaker,
Order.
whatever he said now from the other side, the fact remains that the land bank, I know, was a knee-jerk policy reaction to undercut the role of the Tauke Land Trust Board and open up access to native land for development because the TLTB had lost its way in terms of being an able, competent and just guardian of native land administration as Rod Salala had intended. Now, what would Rod Skuna be thinking of these initiatives today as Fiji approaches its 50th year of independence? Now, these, Mr. Speaker, are points to consider. Mr. Speaker, many of us in this august house possess native land owning community rights. We know the problems with the TLTB, but setting up the land bank since 2011 has not diminished or improved the primary problems within the Tauke Land Trust Board. I wonder, Honourable Speaker, if the Minister responsible for the TLTB would be bold enough to hold a public inquiry on the workings of the TLTB in the same way as the Housing Authority inquiry is presently being done and overseen by the Minister responsible. Because as Minister Sudhakar took great pains to explain in March, Matangali consent by 60% of the land owning unit is integral before any land can be deposited in the land bank, but for 99-year term of lease, most of them say no. Mr. Speaker, it is high time that the Minister responsible tables a motion to institute a public inquiry into the workings of the TLTB so that we do not have duplication of effort and resources between the body and the land bank unit. I believe many would support such a public inquiry so that the landowners and tenants have a chance to resolve many of the historical challenges and find a way forward. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the Honourable Pio Tikondondo for his contribution to the debate. We will move on. Secretary General.